Hello, everybody. My name is Spencer Walsh. Welcome to today's show. We have a good one for you. As always, on the show today, it's a disappointing one. Jamaal Bowman falls 17 points. Pretty solid trouncing in the in the New York 16th congressional primary to George Latimer, the most expensive primary in history. We'll take you through some of the AIPAC spending. How much did that matter? How much does some other of Bowman's mistakes matter in the district? We'll go through all of that stuff. Also, major moments happening in Bolivia today. An attempted coup attempt. Military, this general surrounding the presidential palace could not get more Cold War movie if you tried. That situation, though, has now been resolved. We'll tell you some really dramatic events that unfolded in the streets of the capital there, La Paz. And we have some more polls coming out as we get ready for the presidential debate tomorrow night. All right, so, yeah, pretty crazy stuff. Like, there is a debate. I don't think a lot of people know. There is a presidential debate tomorrow night. You know, it's going to be on CNN. It's really pretty crazy. But anyway, so Jamaal Bowman, we got to get to him. It was a pretty tough loss. New York 17th. And I think, there's a lot, New York 16th. There was a lot of factors, that go into this. It's probably about a 17-point loss. But, there are, you go through kind of all, it may pop up a little bit more when some of the Westchester County votes are counted. But still, point is, Jamaal Bowman lost quite handily. And it is kind of hard because there are so many kind of different factors that are all very, very valid that essentially play into why the race turned out the way it is. And I don't know I don't know exactly, the best way almost to even go into them. But first of all, kind of on the day, and really kind of lording over everything throughout the entire campaign, this has been the most expensive primary in history. And I don't think, and this was a quote from one of the articles that I read from, I believe, the head of If Not Now, you don't spend $15 million on, or I think it would turn out to be $20 million plus on the election if your positions are popular. It's not something that you do. And it's surprising that people, they had to spend, I think, that high amount of money, because it essentially did show the polls. I think this was about a check-in for the polls around like late April, early May, and the polls essentially seemed to show around the same result. So it's kind of disputed, I guess, how much influence that the AIPAC spending had in the first place. So I think it definitely had a very major role. Probably helps run up the score maybe 5 points, but again, there was 17 points in there. So there was other stuff going on as well. I think that is definitely pretty clear, because, and also from what I could tell from going back through some of the spending and the records and the reports of spending going up, I think they've probably been spending pretty heavily for about the past month and a half, but not really as much before that, because they know people, especially in these congressional races, do not like to get bombarded. They have a little bit of high tolerance with the presidential race, but middle of the summer, you don't want to hear some ad going on every single solitary day, and it did make a pretty big difference. But again, not the major difference, and I think it is pretty clear, a lot of their ads turned out to be not about Israel, and there is a lot of kind of hits for Bowman on things that were just kind of very misleadingly portrayed, that even had to be walked back in the past by some of the people that put him out. There was also some things that they hit him on that were true, like the pulling of the fire alarm, which people did. I did some calls today in the Bronx, yesterday, I guess, for the election, and I did some calls. People were mentioning that in I think it was at least once there was this guy who was like, he was an embarrassment. He's an embarrassment. So that's the New York way of saying it. Once you hear the embarrassment, not embarrassment, then you're talking to a real New Yorker. But that was a big part that they hit him for. That that was true. They portrayed him as chaotic. Real results, not rhetoric. That was George Latimer's slogan that he obviously won pretty handily on. So that plays into it for sure. And then there were some things like the Biden infrastructure bill, which was actually quite. It was true that he voted against it, but it was very misleading because it was something that he was actually trying to do to fight for Joe Biden's full agenda, which I think he did probably not as good a job as he could have of turning it out there. And when you look at some of the results, and I think I'm not as familiar as I would need to be make be completely confident on the conclusions of why some of the turnout in the Bronx went so badly. There was only 7,000 total votes in the Bronx. Granted, it was a much bigger portion of the district in the Bronx before, but there was about 30,000 votes more than that. I think it was close to 35,000 total votes in the Bronx before. That was, probably the biggest reason, if I'm honest, why Bowman lost from 2020 to 2022. Westchester, as a county, is probably I would put it at least top 3 in terms of the most Zionist places in the country. Also, voters are they're liberal, they're suburban, they got a lot of time on their hands, and they had, all the time in the day, to go from their work from home kind of financial jobs down to the polling station, down to local high school, and pull that lever for George Latimer when people in the Bronx didn't really have the time to. I think it's also going to be very interesting to delve into the results that I've talked about before in these kind of Hudson River towns, that those are very critical to understanding. That could have been the area in Westchester that was most fertile for Jamaal Bowman, but I am not able to see, town by town, how he was really able to capitalize on that. Maybe I'll, go dig through that later on my own time. But, bottom line is there has been, this, I think the most important way of looking at it is, I think the way progressives should process it is that this was a district where, again, Jamaal Bowman, they really tried to come in, the pro-Israel side tried to come in for, almost a message job and really take him out. And there was a lot of money that was being spent, and that definitely played a role. But I think this is something that is going to sound maybe a little crazy to a lot of the people that are on the left that are out there, buying. And I think the fact they had to spend $20 million to save this race in a district like this is a sign of AIPAC's desperation, to be very clear. But I think that the fact that this result happened in a district like this does not mean that pro-Palestine activism is a dead weight for everyone in the Democratic Party. And I think, honestly, Jamaal Bowman, it's very, very likely, had there not been, had there not been $20 million spent, but also had there not been, thousands and thousands of his, most likely voters been out of the district and put in for ultra-Zionist Richie Torres, which, that is the worst bit of luck. Just a few people not filling out the census essentially was what really did Jamaal Bowman in. I think more than anything, because if you see them in the district, it's absolutely incredible. There's neighborhoods on neighborhoods on neighborhoods that have been completely cut out, or that were completely cut out of Jamaal Bowman's district. I think either from the pre-final redistricting from the 2022 to 2024 period. So you had just a small part of the Bronx that was still left. That was a co-op city part, and he was able to get a little bit more back. Wakefield is another one. Like, these are literally the most upper districts of the Bronx. Baychester, Wakefield, Woodlawn, a little bit. Those were the only parts of the Bronx left. And if you know this kind of area, you got all that Van Cortlandt Park, Kingsbridge, Norwood, Riverdale, all those areas where he was able to really pick up a lot of votes from a lot of the more kind of densely populated areas in the Bronx. And again, I don't think you could say, he did a good job turning out that part of the Bronx that was still left in his district this time. But the fact that all those voters, tens of thousands of voters that would have probably gone for him had they been in the district, he lost them in the redistricting, which made that fight a hell of a lot tougher. There was also, that money being spent for a constituency on the other side, and talk about in terms of turnout, the Scarsdale area, the Rye area, the Harrison area. Those were people that probably where his strongest vote came from Westchester. Also, maybe a little bit of, just the whole kind of eastern side of the district. I saw a tweet kind of crowing about how the fact that Westchester United registered 15,000 people to vote in the district through synagogue. And it's like, they had all the money in the world to do it. And you're not going to find constituencies that are, this pro-Israel and this well-organized and this well-resourced many other places in the country, especially where members of the squad are standing for election, like North St. Louis and Corey Bush. But it is still going to play a massive, massive role in determining the fate of this election. So, bottom line is it is undeniably an incredibly tough loss for Jamaal Bowman. And I think, there are some things, I think there was a very interesting story by Daniel Marins, who had this coming out. And there was a pretty, interesting, because he's been reporting the district, reporting Democratic politics for a very long time. And there was also, I think it's important to say, and he puts this in the story, there was a lot of Republicans that were switching over from Republican to Democrat from this Westchester Unites group to cut out Jamaal Bowman from Congress, which, again, this just speaks to the organization of the pro-Israel constituency within the group. That roughly 1 in 8 members of the voting age population made up of more than 1/3 of the voters who cast early ballots in the primary, according to the group's estimates, were Jewish residents. So, and after the Hamas terror attack on October 7th and the ferocious Israeli invasion of Gaza, Bowman questioned the evidence of Hamas' sexual assaults, routinely accused Israel of committing genocide, and allied himself with the DSA. Diane Katz, a White Plains homemaker attending Latimer's event with her husband Gary, an attorney and investor. Again, the standard down-pat person who, and the couple, just in general, who organized like hell. And again, you got to give them credit because they got their win. Organized like hell for George Latimer's win. I keep thinking, what would it be like if he was elected again? Katz, an Israel supporter, said, who was wearing dog tags to raise awareness about Israeli hostages captured on October 7th. I don't know what the next few years would have been like for me as a citizen of this country. And again, this is probably somebody who barely knew who Jamaal Bowman was until October 7th. And, there was a lot of people who really, really coalesced around George Latimer and the possibility of getting a very, very big pro-Israel run. And I think Marins here makes a good point that he probably could have emphasized, especially around Latimer, who was a very, very good retail politician, and it's something that, Bernie struggled with those as well. He emphasized national issues way too much. He was not somebody who was, speaking about some of the things he did. He brought $1 billion in federal funds to the district, according to at least his campaign, although that has been challenged, but he has really brought, there is things that he can say that he tangibly did for the district. And I think his inability to kind of turn on the glad handing, turn on the, the local meetings, having conversations with people. And again, they may not have voted for you, but at least people do, to a certain extent, especially in the local political level, especially in the Westchester local political level, they do love to be reached out to. They do love to be catered to a little bit, in terms of, massaged and things like that, which is something that Latimer did incredibly, incredibly well. Also, riding on the whole surge of Israeli anger. I think, Bowman, could have saved maybe a few percentage points by doing that, but, a lot of the things, the district shifting way more to the right, with the cutout of the Bronx and the inclusion of a lot of these kind of central and northern Westchester, very, shall we say, socially liberal, economically conservative, and also very, very Zionist places. That was something that was probably going to doom Bowman in the water anyway. But, the bottom line is, for the left, is that, yes, it is a tough loss, but you should absolutely not take any, sort of final despair from this, which is an incredibly tough district, probably one of the toughest districts for pro-Israel politics in the entire country. right up there, with like, I don't know, maybe New York 17, or sorry, pro-Palestinian politics in the entire country, right up there with New York 17 just to the north, which, encapsulates Westchester and Rockland, which is a very just Zionist region. I think the real bottom line here is that pro-Palestinian politics should not be seen as a complete dead end, something to completely abandon in the Democratic Party among the left, and something they should absolutely keep fighting for, because the terrain, the climate, the candidate, the campaign, there won't be as many headwinds as this in a lot of other places. But still, again, very sad loss, but go get on the phone, volunteer, donate for Cori Bush, because if she loses, I'm sorry, that'll actually be pretty damn depressing. I may come on here and start crying, but no, I won't do that. We'll just cry before I come on the air. I'll pull myself together. All right, crazy scenes happening in Bolivia. Pretty much what we got going on, the attempted coup. It was really crazy stuff here that we have seen. The narrative is pulling very, very fast. And unfolding very, very fast. Armored vehicles rammed into the doors of Bolivia's government palace in Wednesday in an apparent coup attempt. Just a quick refresher for those of you who may be unfamiliar with Bolivian government. Covered it a lot, actually, on the show, because it's really just remarkable history. Essentially, there was a U.S. coup in 2019 that put in essentially a Christo-fascist, literally, go look it up, Janine Áñez, in government, who just let COVID run rampant, really hurt the economy, and essentially, wanted to bring Christianity back, really target the indigenous population. It was really awful stuff. Essentially, it was all based on the fact that Evo Morales, who had been the first, it was coup overthrowing Evo Morales, who had been the first indigenous president in a majority indigenous country in Bolivia to come to power. He ruled for 14 years. He essentially tried to get another term. The court accepted it. But it was widely viewed by, at least the elites as something that should not have happened. He won the election, it later turned out, but there was a, Organization of American States attempt to cast aspersions on the result. That, of course, brought about the coup. But then the country was shut down over the course of, for so long, that I believe either in 2021, Luis Arce, who's Evo Morales' economic minister, won re-election and has been governing ever since. Well, the last time we talked about it was because of a split in the Movement for Socialism Party, which essentially kind of unified the indigenous majority in the kind of hinterlands and the working class of the urban parts of Bolivia to form what is pretty much an electoral juggernaut in the country. Evo Morales wanted another bite at the apple, and Luis Arce didn't want to give it to him. Kind of understandably so. Somebody who just, leads to know when they got a good thing going, and just kind of step back. Know when to retire, know when to play a supporting role for the sake of the movement. But that all is a precedence to the preceding elements to the coup that took place today. Armored vehicles rammed the doors of the Bolivian government palace on Wednesday in an apparent coup attempt, but Luis Arce vowed to stand firm and named a new army commander who ordered the troops to stand down. Soon, the soldiers pulled back, along with a line of military vehicles, as hundreds of Arce's supporters rushed the square outside the palace, waving Bolivian flags, singing the national anthem, and cheering. If you want to see some really incredible pictures, I do encourage you to go on social media to take a look at this. You can see the tank, literally coming in, trying to blow down the doors. It is really some incredible stuff. And they're rolling through the streets. Police kind of coming in, surrounding the presidential palace, and it was really some incredible stuff. It was a pretty quick also mobilization with people really, even La Paz, which is probably the strongest city for the opposition to the current government because it's probably the wealthiest place, they really came in pretty hard and pretty fast. Some really, pretty incredible images. Evo Morales and Luis Arce, the current president and the former president, coming out right away to denounce and call for mobilization in Bolivia's Plaza Murillo, which is the government palace. And there's a really crazy video of, these armed guards and these, jackbooted thugs. Literally, if you want to hear some jackboots, they'll turn it on right here. This is them, the audio of them just essentially marching in, guns in hand, to the plaza, essentially trying to, I don't know why, they just essentially stood out. I don't know why they didn't bust them in and, try and really go for it, but they essentially pull up in a big convoy, and you can hear the marching there in the background. The police coming up in riot gear, pretty incredible photos. They entered Bolivia's Palacio Quemado by force, running an armored vehicle into the doors as a coup is underway. This is on Telesur TV, how it started. And, you can see just incredible stuff. They're just about to ram the doors, people in military gear all up and over the place. Evo Morales essentially said there are indications that a coup may have been planned in advance. I asked the people with a democratic vocation to defend the homeland from some military groups that act against the democracy and the people. David Chokwehankwa denounced the coup underway as well. AMLO of Mexico condemned it. Xiomara Castro of Honduras also came out to condemn it. Unconditional support, she says, to Lucho ex Bolivia, which is the Twitter account of Luis Arce, and Evo Morales. And going on throughout the day, the foreign minister, who has posted a video wearing, honestly, a pretty incredible hat, Salindo Bolivia, said, she said, the plurinational state of Bolivia denounces before the international community the regular mobilization of the units of the Bolivian army that threaten democracy, peace, and security of the country. And we call on the entire country to resist this and respect the democratic values and support the government of brother President Luis Arce Catacora, constitutional and legitimately elected by the sovereign will of the Bolivian people. So again, pretty incredible stuff. Venezuela coming out for support as well. The guy who was behind it, Juan Jose Zunilla, he essentially mobilized this group of different troops. I don't know exactly what the name of it is. He was a National Army commander. He mobilized, I think, a few units. He's not, obviously mobilized the whole Bolivian army, just probably anti-government groups. Got them all to come out there, and he announced tried to announce, he was essentially, now he's fleeing the country. He announced the release of the 2019 coup leaders, who he refers to as the political prisoners of the country, beginning with Luis Fernando Camacho from a maximum security prison, Janine Áñez, and who was the president at the time, for the coup interim coup leader, the jailed military officers, among others, and Lula of Brazil came out to condemn it. As well as the day went on, another pretty incredible moment inside the Bolivian government palace. There was an exchange between Luis Arce, the president, and members of the military, led by Commander Juan Jose Zunilla. Not really any word on kind of what was said, but you can hear some of the shouting. It seems like this is taken from inside the palace with some of the workers out there. Arce, there's an incredible video of him just coming out of the palace, being like, come out, face me, let's go. And then it was really incredible stuff. And you could see the guy in the military uniform. There's this woman yelling at him. Arce is standing next to him. And I don't know what they were thinking. Like, if this is a really kind of awful coup attempt, because they come up to the door and they just start yelling at him with all their tanks, with all their guns ready to go. I don't think a single shot was fired, but I don't even know what they were really trying to do. So Arce has sworn in a new military commander, multiple new military commanders amid an ongoing coup attempt. And just looking at this video here, I wish that we were some visual medium here. You could see him, essentially in a big group of people, the general and the president arguing it out. Like, again, I don't understand. And this is, again, not that I'm rooting for this, but they essentially just pulled up, sat there, and then that gave them time for a really large amount of people to come in with the beautiful We Follow flags, the indigenous movement, the MAS movement for socialism in Bolivia, the whole constituency of that came out throughout La Paz in Bolivia's Plaza Murillo. See if you're a Spanish speaker, you may be able to pick up what they're chanting here. And we got to, of course, turn on the volume. And fuera they did, as apparently the videos, some pretty incredible videos of the police just running out as the social movements appear to now outnumber the military in Plaza Murillo, the site of the government palace. Bolivia's Attorney General says it'll issue an immigration alert for ex-National Army Commander Juan Jose Zuniga, who headed today's military action, and his whereabouts are unknown, according to Telesur. He fled Plaza Murillo in a rapid manner, and his current whereabouts are unknown. By this time, about an hour ago, Maduro of Venezuela celebrated the defeat of a fascist coup by the people in the streets, saying he just spoke with Luis Arce of Bolivia. They're going to initiate a criminal investigation, and of course they had the last coup leaders already locked up. Seems there are some more rats to the Bolivian state that have exposed themselves here. The government says they have neutralized the threat. Incredible mobilization on the streets, and hopefully, this is some sort of catalyst for the disparate, Morales thread and the Arce thread to come together, support each other, unify in some way. As the Bolivian economy, is not in the best of spots at the moment. They need a strong coordination between Arce and Morales, and I think hopefully they can, and I'm not an expert on this, but hopefully they can put aside their differences and say it's more worth preserving what we have now, because it really is under attack, than fighting out for any potential differences in relatively small that we have within the movement for socialism. All right, so on to the final story of the day. We have new polling from the New York Times. President Biden continues to confront deeper doubts among Democrats and former President Donald J. Trump, faces among Republicans, even after President Trump was convicted of 34 felony charges last month, according to a new poll by New York Times and Siena College. The national survey on the eve of the first presidential debate shows that voters have broad distaste for both candidates, but that Trump has so far better consolidated the support of his own party. Only 72% of voters who said they cast a ballot for Biden 4 years ago said they approve of the job he is doing as president currently, and voters overall say they now trust President Trump more on the issues that matter to them. So in the first time Siena poll since the former president's trial ended with a guilty verdict on May 30th, more than two-thirds of voters said the outcome of his Manhattan case made no difference to their vote. Roughly 90% of Republicans still view Trump favorably. So pretty much about same as before, which in terms of functional voters, it's going to be 10% of people who think they're Republican but voted Biden last time and are going to vote for Biden again. Probably about 100% of people, again, who voted for Trump are sticking with him more or less throughout this time, other than maybe the people who are really, repelled by January 6th. In terms of the court case, I think it's pretty clear, this did not make a big dent nationally. I don't think it was really anticipated to. It didn't help Trump the best. I think those two-thirds, probably weren't good. The one-third that said the vote mattered, I would bet a large majority, or the conviction mattered. I'm saying a large majority of that probably did end up hurting Trump. But in terms of all the cases that are percolating, I think Americans care a lot more about the other cases. But since it's taken so long to get this started, and was only really started when it was clear Trump was going to run again, a lot of these cases, and just really mistakes, pretty awful mistakes on the Democratic side, this is the only conviction result that we're going to get before November. So this is something to keep in mind there. The courts will not save the liberals this time. So at the same time, The poll revealed some vulnerabilities for Trump because of his conviction, especially among independent voters who could prove decisive in November. Twice as many independents said the conviction made them less likely to oppose Trump than support him. A majority of independents also said he received a fair trial. So there you go, talking about those kind of swing voters there. Those results of the survey show Trump with his biggest lead in the National Times Siena poll among likely voters, 48% to 44%, a 3 percentage point margin when calculated before the figures are rounded. Trump's lead with registered voters was an even larger 6 points. Those results are notably different than the new national polling average released by the New York Times this week, which shows Trump leading Biden by about 1 percentage point. It's difficult to determine whether such results, known in the industry as an outlier, reflect a change in public opinion not yet seen by other pollsters or are produced by random error. In this case, the size of Trump's lead in the polls may be related to the fact that Republicans were significantly likelier to answer their phones and take the survey than Democrats or independents, a new development in Times Siena polling this cycle. One potential explanation was that Trump's base is more motivated to participate in the poll after his conviction. But again, it's going to be interesting to see how this. It all matters really. The national vote doesn't matter so much. I think to win, we know that Biden has to, beat out the electoral college advantage by winning the popular vote by like 1 to 2 points. I think is the voter or is the common percentage, and Trump is leading in a lot of these different averages by +3, +6, +1, +4, +2. The candidates are neck and neck in the Times Siena survey in April, with Trump holding a slight advantage, 47 to 46%. In the new survey, when all 4 potential third-party candidates were included, Trump led Biden 40 to 37%, with RFK Jr. getting 7%. What is vivid in this poll and across the polling averages is that Americans are unhappy with the direction of the nation as Biden and Trump prepare to make their cases in an historically early debate on Thursday. That should be pretty interesting. I think the polling is going to be what it's going to be. And I always say it is more important to kind of drill down on those swing states. But I would say that especially the kind of states, the big 3 in the north, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, where this election probably almost certainly is going to be decided. But to kind of get you ready for the debate, if you're going to watch it, I would say expect Biden to come out pretty reserved, pretty prepared, and Trump essentially to try not to look like he is, going to be absolutely insane, and essentially, contain the fact, because the mics will be cut this time when for whoever's not speaking. So it's going to be a bit better in terms of the interruptions, which could hurt Trump. I think probably coming out, Biden gets on the State of the Union self, gets a little bit more of a slight bump in the polls, and Trump, people continue to realize how crazy Trump is as he gets probably his biggest spotlight on him personally yet of the entire campaign thus far. All right, so we got for you guys today. We're back on Friday. It's Newsflash.